Are the kids behaving differently online?
You know, it's not so much that they're behaving differently as much as that we have a sense of visibility that we've never seen before. So we're used to being able to see a certain group of kids in certain places, right? The mall, we can see kids hanging out with their friends that way. But as adults, we don't typically have a really good sense of all the kids and a good sense of where they are and what they're doing when they're with their friends. What's going on online is, in many ways, it's youth space. So they're there, they're goofing around as though they're there just with their friends. And so what ends up happening is you can get a sense of what's going on really in broad sweeps. And it isn't just the kids like the kids in your community, but the kids who are in different communities all around the world with all sorts of different ideas of what is normative behavior, right? And that what is normal, what is common really differs. And so we see these behaviors online and we're like, oh my gosh, it's radically different today than it ever was before. It's not really.
Well, I was going to ask that actually. How different is it from like when I was a kid, I'd come to the mall and I'd do stuff at the mall or I'd go to the movie theater or whatever. Right. How different is it?
Think about what happens when you were doing that with your friends, right? You were there, you were joking around, you were gossiping, you were flirting, you were kind of consuming culture and consuming merchandise, but it was part of this all-encompassing social experience. The same thing is actually happening fully online, right? So all of those everyday practices, the gossip, the flirting, the joking around, that's taking place online. And it's taking place online with the same kinds of friends that took place in the mall, right? You met up with all the kids at school, but you also saw the kids at the neighboring school, and you're like, hey, who are you? What's that about? That same thing is where we're seeing it play out. So young people who are engaged online, they're primarily engaged with the people they already know. They're friends from school, they're friends from after-school activities, they're friends from around the community. Yeah, we're seeing patterns, and a lot of it has to do with their particular social positions, right? So the popular kids are using the technologies to try to maintain and reinforce popularity in very particular ways, and that's where we see social status becoming really critical. We also see marginalized kids who were desperately seeking some sort of support, and were often at loss, out in more traditional senses of schools or whatnot, finding a community online. And this is one of the more powerful narratives of the internet, right? Your queer kids who can actually find people like them who can support them.
I think one of the things that has happened to the first generation of kids to grow up always being online, which by the way are my kids. They have never experienced dial-up or anything like that. They've always had always on. And what I've seen is they have a global awareness that was not present in my generation. They really feel as if this is one world. They also feel as if they are always connected to everyone else. There is a feeling of being connected that I did not have in my generation. And I think the third thing is that there is a sense of movement forward, the sense of going somewhere, of maybe you might call it progress, that I think was not present in previous generations.
Theorists like Robert Putnam have suggested that the idea of social capital, this social glue that holds people together, is impossible online. Yet what you're talking about, or what it seems you're talking about, this global consciousness, this global awareness, taps into a sense of social capital. Would you say that Putnam got it wrong?
I think that the idea that Robert Putnam had of bowling alone, that the kind of social clubs and volunteer effort that was really kind of a part of America, he suggests has gone, I think has been replaced by a different kind of social networking, a different kind of clubbiness. So it's true that those old versions have gone and are missing. And I think we can regret that. But at the same time, there's a new variety, a new dimension of social interaction that was not present before. And that is the dimension that we're exploring now. That has not really been possible before. It's not been possible to have 100 friends dedicated to one really obscure little fascination. And now that's everyday occurrence. And so for many people, this kind of new club, this kind of bowling, is really a revelation and a great gift.
What glue is it that you think holds people together in these types of environments?
I think one of the things that the web is doing, the kind of glue that it's brought to us that we haven't had before is the glue of obsession, the glue of fascination, the glue of passion about something in particular. And so I think people who maybe before were lost or felt alone in their own little interests now are able to really connect with people who share what they share, this fascination with something in particular. And that particularness has been amplified and magnified. And that is the glue that I think brings a lot of people together that was not present before.
Growing up, I became more and more interested in how media, pop culture, and internet affected each other and how these elements intertwined. And among other things, it definitely led to the fact that my generation, and especially kids growing up today, are growing up in what has become an overtly extreme media culture. Kids and teens are taking in massive amounts of media every day. Kids get smartphones and laptops while they are still in primary school, and they also get a lot of control over these technical devices. And as a result, kids get hooked on media pretty fast. In a large survey, Norwegian teens were asked how much time they spend on the internet every day, and they estimated a bit over 3.5 hours. If you add the time they spend watching TV and movies, reading magazines and newspapers, and listening to music, you get an almost constant stream of media consumption, which I am not the only one believing has a huge and, most importantly, negative effect on the way they see themselves and our perceptions of reality. Reality is a difficult term. What is real, and who shapes, forms, and controls it? What is the perfect body? What is an ideal man or woman? What should we do with our life, and what role in society do we have based on our gender? When we spend up to 10 hours a day consuming different media, it's obvious that most of us, if not all, are going to be affected by the representation and ideals in the media culture we belong to. Kids growing up today are actually growing up in a society that's moving towards more prejudiced gender roles than we have been doing in a long time. We are actually moving the wrong way. If we look at this from a female perspective, the media is, for instance, a far way from reflecting reality when it comes to quantity. Women make up 49% of humanity, and only 32% of the main characters in children's TV are female. Children's TV also conform to stereotyped images of women. This problem continues in media for grown-ups. Women are underrepresented in movies, TVs, and news. Research indicates that these mixed messages from media are making it really difficult for young girls to negotiate the transition to adulthood. Girls' confidence frequently drops in the preteen years, and instead of focusing on the worth of their knowledge, capabilities, and skills, they begin to base their feelings of self-worth more and more on appearance and weight. From the age of 13, boys' sense of self-worth increase while girls' decrease. Girls feel they have to be perfect in almost all areas of life, whether it's beauty, body, fashion, or the relationship to their friends and family. And why shouldn't they? Girls who consume media are going to be influenced by stereotypical images of uniformly beautiful, obsessively thin objects of male desire. Professional women are far less visible than their male counterparts, and several international studies now show that girls who are frequent users of media also have the most negative opinion about their gender.
I'm fat. Wow, I'm fat. She's only 19 years old? What am I doing with my life? Hey, 2 likes, nice. Do I like this photo? Does she really need more likes? Hey, I hope I'm gonna be invited to the wedding. What, 1 more like, nice. Welcome to the internal monologue of a typical social media scroll. A monologue that so many of us have every day, but we don't think about, we don't talk about it. In fact, many of us can't even recognize it happening. I'm Bailey Parnell, and I'm going to talk to you about the unintended consequences social media is having on your mental health. You see, I've worked in social marketing, primarily in higher education, for most of my career. That means I work with a lot of 18 to 24-year-olds, which also happens to be the most active demographic on social media. The other thing you need to know about me is that I'm young enough to have grown up with social media, but just old enough to be able to critically engage with it in a way that 12-year-old me probably couldn't. So my life is social media, personally, professionally, and academically. And if it was doing this to me, what was it doing to everyone else? Well, I immediately found out I wasn't alone. The Center for Collegiate Mental Health found that the top 3 diagnoses on university campuses are anxiety, depression, and stress. And numerous studies from the US, Canada, the UK, you name it, have linked this high social media use with these high levels of anxiety and depression. But the scary thing is that high social media use is almost everyone I know. It's my friends, it's my family, my colleagues. 90% of 18 to 29-year-olds are on social media. We spend on average 2 hours a day there. Anything we spend this much time doing has lasting effects on us. So let me introduce you to 4 of the most common stressors on social media that, if go unchecked, have potential to become full-blown mental health issues. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. Number 1, the highlight reel. Just like in sports, the highlight reel is a collection of the best and brightest moments. Social media is our personal highlight reel. It's where we put up our wins, or when we look great, or when we're out with friends and family. But we struggle with insecurity because we compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reels. We are constantly comparing ourselves to others. The highlights are what people want to see. In fact, when your highlights do well, you encounter the second stressor on social media, which is number 2, social currency. Just like the dollar, a currency is literally something we use to attribute value to a good or service. In social media, these likes, the comments, the shares, they've become this form of social currency by which we attribute value to something. The problem is that in our social media, we are the product, and we're letting others attribute value to us. This is changing our sense of identity. We are tying up our self-worth with what others think about us, and then we're quantifying it for everyone to see. And we're obsessed. We have to get that selfie just right, and we will take 300 photos to make sure. And then we'll wait for the perfect time to post. We're so obsessed, we have biological responses when we can't participate. Which leads me to the 3rd stressor on social media. Number 3, FOMO. It's a light phrase, we all throw it around. But FOMO, or the fear of missing out, is an actual social anxiety from the fear that you are missing a potential connection, event, or opportunity. Perhaps the worst stressor on social media is number 4, online harassment. 40% of online adults have experienced online harassment. 73% have witnessed it. And the unfortunate reality is that it is much worse and much more likely if you're a woman, LGBTQ, person of color, Muslim. I think you get the point. The problem is that in the news, we're seeing these big stories. We're seeing the 18-year-old Tyler Clementes who took his life after his roommate secretly filmed him kissing another guy and outed him on Twitter. But what about the everyday online harassment? What about that ugly Snapchat you sent your friend with the intention of it being private, and now it's up on Facebook? And so it's just one photo. It's funny. It's just one mean comment. It's not a big deal. But when these micro moments happen over and over again over time, that's when we have a macro problem. We have to recognize these everyday instances as well, because if they go unchecked and the effects unnoticed, we are going to have many more Tyler Clementes. Regarding social media, we are already experiencing impairments similar to substance dependencies. With every like, you get a shot of that feel-good chemical, dopamine. You gain more of that social currency. So what do we do to feel good? We check likes. Just one more time. We're anxious if we don't have access. Doesn't that sound like every drug you've ever heard of? Yeah. So when that grows, when your social media use goes unconfronted over time, that's when we see the rising levels of anxiety and depression. The FOMO, the distractions, the highlight reels, the comparisons, it's a lot, and it's all the time. Now here's the thing. I like social media. I do, I love it. And hearing what I've said today might make you think I want you to get off of it, but I don't. You see, I don't think it's going anywhere. So I'm not going to waste my time telling you to spend less time on social media. Frankly, I don't think abstinence is an option anymore. But that doesn't mean you can't practice safe social. You see, everything I've talked about today has nothing and everything to do with social media. What do I mean? I mean, social media is neither good nor bad. It's just the most recent tool we're using to do what we've always done: tell stories and communicate with each other. So when we talk about this dark side of social media, what we're really talking about is the dark side of people. That dark side that makes harassers harass, that insecurity that makes you take down a photo you were excited to share, that dark side that looks at a picture of a happy family and wonders why yours doesn't look like that. So as parents, as educators, as friends, as bosses, this dark side is what we need to focus on. So is social media hurting your mental health? The answer is it does not have to. Social can tear you down, yes. Or it can lift you up, where you leave feeling better off or have an actual laugh out loud. Thank you.